Welcome to the Intuitive Ascending Mind podcast. Today, I want to share with you some previous shows that we've had on the success frequency because there's so much good knowledge that's on that show. And I wanted to incorporate some of that information over to the Intuitive Ascending Mind podcast because in that show, I really talked about the mind. I talked about what makes us successful. And I had some phenomenal guests that shared some of their insights as to what made them successful. And these are all beneficial little nuggets that I know you will enjoy. So take a listen, enjoy. Peace and blessings, my friend.
Welcome to the Success Frequency with host Aliyah Yasmin. Over the next hour, you're going to learn the impact in your life that results from your way of thinking. Aliyah and her guest will explore the best ways to achieve growth for you. Now, here's Aliyah.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Success Frequency. Joining me today is the emotional coach for executives and everyday individuals as well, Mr. Roberto Bugatto. Welcome, Roberto. Thank you so much for being a part of this show.
Hi, Aliyah. Thanks for having me over. It's a fantastic opportunity. Really excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Roberto, so we've done the effectiveness of emotional communication event together. Let's talk a little bit about what makes emotions so powerful and how we can help others navigate that world.
Fantastic. Really excited. Looking forward.
So share with us a little bit about your approach to understanding emotions.
All right. Yeah. So for me, one of the key things about understanding emotions is to really be able to properly label them. I was coming across not too long ago on a concept in psychology called alexithymia, and it sounds kind of a complicated word, but it's quite simple. It's this principle of people not being when someone cannot really either identify, process, or express emotions or feelings. It's called alexithymia. And I think in a sense, we all suffer a little bit from alexithymia in different levels. But the idea is one way of really, tackling emotional management is to really be able to label them correctly. And I think as a first step of approaching emotional management or emotional intelligence is, hey, what is it that I am feeling? What is it that I am experiencing as an emotion? Is it anger or just frustration? Is it love or is it passion? And so on and so forth. So for me, being able to really name them correctly is one of the first steps to understanding emotions and managing them better.
Yeah, that's amazing feedback. I think the process of thought, feelings, and emotions is essential for us to understand, because before emotions get created, I spent a lot of time talking about how they're created. Like first it starts as a thought, and then we get like emotion, we get a feeling involved, and then it becomes emotions. And the to capture it, we take the thought and then we engage in the feeling. And a lot of times if you have the thought and you don't have the feeling, then the emotions are not present. And then if it's the other way around, you have the feelings, but the thoughts aren't in alignment, then the emotions, you're not navigating the emotional spectrum. So talk a little bit about emotional intelligence and why is it essential for resilience?
Yeah, of course. Emotional intelligence is described differently by it was first coined in 1990. Then I think kind of who is considered to be the father of modern emotional intelligence concept is Daniel Goleman, and he expresses it in five aspects. So without going into much detail on those, it's about our ability to self-manage, but also manage our external relationships. So if you look at it from a matrix standpoint, you will have information and action on self, but then also information and action in exterior, right? So how do you manage yourself? But how do you become aware of yourself? And then how do you manage yourself emotionally? But how do you become aware of the external emotions? And then how do you manage external emotions, or in other words, relationship? So for me, if you want to really simplify the approach of emotional intelligence is it's really about the ability of relationship management, both internal or external. Because at the end of the day, we're really relating to ourselves when we're looking introspectively.
Yeah.
Is that double, that kind of the double, a double serve of awareness plus action? Am I be able to recognize, and that what I was talking before about? Can I label what I'm really feeling and the emotion that I'm experiencing? And if I'm able to label it and know what it is, am I aware of what that entails for my external relationships? Is also and also for myself. It's kind of what emotional intelligence will entail.
Yeah. When it comes to emotions, like we don't monitor ourselves in the emotional field. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
We
Yes.
just allow it to, we just allow it to happen, and we don't observe the emotional behavior. So when that occurs, we really want to dive a little bit deeper and really understand what triggers the emotional reaction. So what when I'm working with clients, what I try to tell them is that they need to start understanding their predominant emotions throughout the majority of the day. That I feel is important because if their predominant emotions are constantly like rooted in thinking of things from the past, then we're really encountering a challenging dynamic with them reliving past emotions and reliving past situations, and they're not working enough in imagination or visioning for the future or even the emotional energetic feel that you want to have in the future. So it's getting them to recognize where they're at living emotionally, and then allowing them to have a platform to bridge the gap to where they want to live emotionally. And I think that's the challenging part, right? You've got a great method of talking about that, and let's talk about your raw method.
Of course, I think it really focuses on what you asked me for, about resilience, and I love the way you put it, Alia, because at the end of the day, if you're constantly living in the past, then you're not really learning from it, right? Because you have to be able to move on. And I think resilience is about that precisely, and why emotional management or emotional intelligence is so important for resilience is that when you said it very nicely, it's at the end of the day we can get stuck in thoughts, but the more that we get stuck in a particular emotion or a particular thought, the greater the habit will become, right? Because all those neural connections will become stronger and stronger. Our brain will become more habitual to think or feel a particular emotion in a particular situation, and the harder it is to break it. And this is why the raw tool becomes really, really powerful. And I've not, this is not particularly innovative in a way. I put it in the raw format because for me, as I experienced my own emotional recovery, it really became like this anchoring um, uh, thought, this anchoring concept that helped me stay grounded and where I needed to be. And RAW stands for, the acronym RAW, RAW is the R stands for by recognition. So you have to be able to recognize what you're feeling, meaning not only being able to label it, but really, hey, what is the actual energy that I am moving? If I feel anger, if I feel frustrated, if I feel love, if I feel happy, I need to be able to call it and recognize it on myself. So that's the R in the roto. The second letter is A for acceptation, or sorry, acceptance. So in a sense, when once you recognize what you're feeling or what the emotion is that you're having, you need to be able to accept it. A lot of times, the problem with our emotional management is that we become triggered by the emotion. We become sort of identified with the emotion.
Yeah.
And the problem with identification or self-identification with the emotion is that rather than becoming a energy channeling, it becomes a energy bottling up. And if that energy is negative, it's going to stay with you forever. So you have to accept the fact that if you're feeling anger, that doesn't mean that you're an angry person. If you're feeling down, doesn't mean that you are a depressed person. That you're feeling or you're having an emotion at a specific point in time. Some acceptance versus against identity, so to speak. And then the W in the raw tool is the why analysis. And a lot of times, when I've met with the clients and the people I mentor across time, my teams at work, um, we tend to ask the why question in the wrong tone. We always, oh, why me? Oh, why this? Oh, why my boss again? Oh, why my wife again? Why my husband again? Um, that's not the type of why that we need to analyze. The type of why that we need to really analyze is, why is it happening? Why did I react to a particular situation the way that I reacted? Why is it that somebody else maybe could have gone through that situation in a different manner and I reacted in a way that I reacted? So that's the type of why analysis that we have to go through to the raw tool. And in a sense, the raw tool helps you break through that automatic machinery that is ongoing constantly in our brain. So it's kind of becoming the observer. And I know we talked about that in the workshop that we did together, but it's truly about you have to kind of not dissociate, but separate, look at the 30,000 feet picture to be able to observe it, to intervene where needed. Yeah.
So let me ask this question. What type of feedback do you give to somebody that is struggling to observe their own behavior? Like, what is the path to that?
Well, surrounding yourself by honest people that really love you and care about you could be a very useful tool. Because then you can really you can have an honest sit down with that person. It could be someone very close to you, family or your loved one or a very good friend or a trustee, a coworker, whatever that you trust, and then really get back and then just sit back and really listen without trying to judge too much. It's more about removing the judgment. The we tend to be our worst enemy. We tend to be our
Yeah.
worst judge. The Greek and the Romans said it very nicely. Yeah, we are. The man is the wolf to man, almost almost lopini. So in a sense, we're constantly judging ourselves constantly. And I think if you get an honest third party feedback, if you're struggling to really identify what is ongoing, I might actually help you start seeing it from an observant standpoint and then use that feedback as part of the raw tool
Yeah.
implementation.
I like the idea of people working with coaches because, sometimes your
Hmm.
family and your friends they're well intentioned, but they're not the ones to guide you through. But they would be great to identify what those behaviors look like because they can see, oh, you always get angry or you always do this or you always react that way. So when you hear that word like you always,
Mm.
that's usually like a good indicator of, well, it could be that person's perception. So we do have to take that into account, but it could be something that you probably need to examine a little bit further to understand, is this a me issue? And if it is, let me see if there's patterns. Let me see if it's only coming from this one person or it's coming from multiple individuals that feel this way towards me. And for the most part, if it's multiple individuals that feel the same way, you're really you've got something mirroring back at you because it's your vibrational frequency that's attracting the same scenario in different individuals. And I think that's usually, a good way to just kind of identify as well.
Mm.
And like I said, working with a coach, coaches are really trained to observe certain key things. We know what positive looks like and we know what negative looks like. And it doesn't take us very long to hear the words and hear the way you describe yourself or the feelings and a really empathetic coach will even feel the energy off of you and they'll know exactly where to go with that. Talk a little bit about how this applies to coaching executives.
Of course, we tend, one of the concepts that I talk in my book, The Nuclear Leader, which is the model that I apply to for executives, is this for me? It's the wrong definition of the need to separate work and life. I lot. The concept is fantastic, right? Work and life balance. I get it, so I'm not fighting against it, but me, it kind of dissociates what really goes on in the workplace and life, because you cannot be two separate persons. You cannot be someone at work and then be somebody else at home. So when for me the overall concept of work and life balance is, I need to kind of separate it, put it into different buckets, and that's okay because some of the interactions and relationships needs to be put into buckets from work and life. But in a sense, what I try to teach executives is that you have to always understand the individual for who or she he is in everyday life, not just at the workplace, because at the workplace we're kind of trained to be a bit of a actor. I don't want to say actor because that might sound
Yeah, I agree with
negative.
that. Yeah, I agree with that. You put the suit on and then you step into the personality.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But then, which is okay, right? So we have to behave in certain ways in certain places, and I get that. That is okay. I cannot just be, in the office with my feet up on the table and in shorts. No, it's just there is a manners to be kept, and there's some policies and some really mannerisms in relationships at workplace. But what I try to teach in the nuclear leader is that it's at the level of identity where what I call connectedness, where the executive will be able to maximize potential of the individuals. Because it is always about, in the executive world, it's about always becoming the highest performer that you can be.
Yeah.
That's technically the goal. We've been hired in the organization for a reason. We bring a skill that is unique or that is needed by the organization. And in a sense, sometimes we forget why we were brought into the organization, but really the executive work is to extract, to maximize the performance of the individuals. And in a sense, unless you're able to connect with them at their emotional level, at the identity level, it's going to be very difficult to keep them on board constantly. It
Yeah.
happens in love life. It's very easy for someone to give it all when you're absolutely madly, blindly in love,
Hmm.
because that happens so deep, the identity at the connectedness level, that is very easy to understand that I don't need to be asked to love in that situation. In a sense, what I'm trying to bring into the workplace is that concept that if the executive is to bring the best out of the individuals, there's only one way. You have to know the individual, know their values, and whether their values and the organization's values will connect, and then maximize that at the workplace.
Yeah, I completely agree. We're getting ready to take our first little break. When we get back, Ashley Johnson's going to be joining us, and we are going to continue exploring this topic a little bit further.
Sublime Knowledge Mindset Coaching offers guaranteed results. 100% of clients reported seeing positive changes in their mindset after just one session. Clients learn to release negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions, improving their overall well-being. Create the life you've always envisioned for yourself. Shift your mindset after one session, or your money back, guaranteed. Welcome back to the Success Frequency with Aliyah Yasmin. We hope you are finding these tools and tips applicable to your own situations in life. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back, everybody. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Roberto Bugatto, and Ashley Johnson decided to pop in the studio as well. So we're going to continue this conversation on emotions, big topic that governs every aspect of our life. So, Roberto, let's continue. We
Correct.
talked about raw, and we talked about what what motivates you to teach this to others.
I think that's a quite straightforward and simple. I've gone through the pains, the ups and downs of emotional distress, depression, and I speak freely in my book as well. About suicidal thoughts, and having gone through that, and then with the help of a coach and a mentor, be able to overcome that and now become a high performer myself. It became very clear that I needed to multiply this. I needed to extend this into the world the best I could, and that is the main motivator to really bring people up on their best performance.
Yeah, it's definitely I too I've gone through some dark times, and what I know today, if I knew that then, I would have never experienced that because I mean, I can say with almost 100% certainty that I know how to navigate emotionally as pretty efficiently. And I will sit with the emotions. I will observe the emotions as they're happening. And I will detach from the outside world as I'm observing, maybe an emotion of frustration or anger or whatever it might be. I just kind of detach. I try to control that emotional energy so that I'm not unleashing it and potentially causing harm to somebody else's life. My path is really like one of self-correction. And in that moment, I will do some breathing exercises, regulate myself back down, and then move forward in dealing with the situation. So
I know that Roberto talks about, I don't know if you want to expand on just the difference between living on a subconscious level, just letting your subconscious guide you, and growing to be on that emotional level so that you can live to your maximum potential.
So that's a great question. I think if I can summarize it, I will summarize it with a conversation that I had with my teenage daughter a few weeks back. And, as a father of teenager, I had, sometimes you have to correct and then guide and then support on what are the best behaviors that need to happen at home. And one of her complaints was that she felt that she wasn't free enough because she couldn't do what she wanted to do all the time. And she had to do chores. And then that for me was a teaching opportunity. And I think what Aliyah was just mentioning now is the key to that. How the difference of understanding and freedom that she had, and what I was trying to teach her is that freedom comes from self-mastery. It doesn't come from your ability to always do what you want to do at the time you want to do. It really comes from self-mastery. And this is for me the key difference. When you're trapped into that emotional negative cycle, and it's quite vicious, to be honest. And is you just it's kind of like this wheel of doom that keeps you rolling downhill, and you don't know where to stop. But once you can actually observe the wheel from outside, you think, hey, something is ongoing here. Something is happening that I can actually be part of. I can intervene, and having that real power of self mastery that Aliyah was mentioning in her own experience, I think that is the key difference between being emotionally trapped or emotionally addicted, as I used to call it on my mentorship program, to really be free from that emotional trap. Become the observer, be present in your own identity.
yeah, when I go through the process of doing that, and I mean, I've been doing it for years. It really took practice for me to do it. It took practice and commitment to myself in order to do it. I remember I would just kind of realize that everything that if it was something negative that I was unleashing, it was going to come back. Like the karmic laws are real. Like it's going to come back. So if I want to stop the cycle, I had to isolate. And if I wanted to, because I couldn't, until I got to the point of being able to master it or just observe the emotional experience, I had to isolate. And then once I isolated, I started writing. And I give this advice to a lot of people, like just start writing. Writing what you're feeling is the first thing because you start opening up that awareness as to what it is that you're actually feeling. And as you write it, you're looking at it objectively. You're kind of the observer now, and you're looking at it, and you realize sometimes you may write it and you realize that it's not as serious as you think it is. And then sometimes you write it and you realize that you're encountering that same feeling over and over again. And that is part of your paradigm. That's part of your subconscious program. And then sometimes you write it and you can also, it gives you the opportunity to realize, what does it look like dualistically, you know? A lot of relationship experiences are like, I don't feel supported. I don't feel loved. Okay, well, you have to rewrite the paradigm to a paradigm that feels supported. You have to immerse yourself in what support would look like to you, and then build through imagination that foundation of support as to what it would feel like. Maybe you come home and that other person's there to just do what you need them to do, sort of, but you have to get into the vibrational feeling of feeling it over and over again, and feeling that appreciation for it, and feeling the good, and understanding that the thoughts need to align with the feelings in order to create this.
I love that you both talk about, essentially, you're both saying in different ways that you have to lay it out before you to have that self-awareness, because you're not going to get anywhere without the self-awareness. Is there something that you have both encountered where, when you're laying out the why, why am I feeling this way? Why is this happening? Something that you encounter a lot that helps people have an aha moment, or a consistent problem that people tend to have? That
I think unsupported is really like a consistent thing. I know this kind of across the board with people. A lack of feeling support, and that support really comes from you being able to support yourself emotionally. That support, usually we put a lot of emphasis on our partners creating that level of support, when the truth of the matter is that we have to create the level of support.
Mm-hmm.
And the path towards that is just really laying that solid foundation for what will make me feel supported. What are my needs in this situation? And understanding that. And then once you understand that, you communicate that in the relationship. Like, this is what, and it's not telling them that they need to do anything. It's not saying, hey, I need you to do this, or I need you. It's not control of the other partner, but it's saying, it's offering up, hey, this is where my challenges are lying in this. And how can we work so that I feel more supported together on this situation? And having your partner do the same thing as well. So that really kind of shows that level of mutual respect.
Yeah.
And reading the science as well, right? I mean, the brain is a very efficient machine. So if you find yourself in patterns of your life, like you're always getting angry with a person or a situation, don't take it as identity, but take it as a flagging system. Yeah. Because if you're into a pattern where something triggers you all the time, observe it. Why this particular situation or person always triggers me. Because if there is a pattern, that means that something is underneath.
Yeah. What do you think causes some of that underneath?
It's always the way I see it. It's always ideas, right? So you have to go down to the level. If I mean, I know we did this in the workshop, but there is this circle of action. So you have, no action comes without a thought. Then actions turns into behaviors, and then behaviors turns into attitude, and then that kind of feeds back into ideas, values, emotions, and feelings, and so on and so forth. It's a cycle. Mm-hmm. But if you tackle really where the error happens, which is in the ideas, then this is where you can actually find the pattern beating a lot more effective, more powerful. So. Yeah. And it usually happens when we're really emotionally charged with our loved ones, someone that is really close, or the work environment, for example.
Yeah. So do you think if we capture the idea when the idea surfaces, do you think if we capture the idea at that point and we shift our perspective on the idea, do you think that will that would change the outcome.
Absolutely, Aliyah. And I love the way that you put it because you talk about the dualistic life, right? You know, that duality. And there is an exercise that I do in my coaching called emotional inventory. And that whole exercise is basically, you know, looking into the opposite of our negative emotions. So it's precisely the observance, being able to know where it is or what it is, that idea, and then turn it upside down, just go in the opposite direction, you know, refill that idea with a positive one.
That's my favorite game to play with Aaliyah. I throw out a negative word and she throws out the positive, and then we put a context to those scenarios just for fun. And I know that you actually have a quote, Roberto, that says gratitude is the medicine for the troubled mind, strength for the weary heart, and focus for the blurry vision.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just a good place to start no matter what negative emotion you have. Is there anything else you'd want to say about how that?
It's one of the high emotions, actually, because and I love the way that Joe Dispenza puts it in his books, right? Because giving, he talks about, and Aliyah was talking about this as well in the workshop a little bit. It's about both intention and attention. So if you empower the high emotions, and gratitude is one of those highest emotions, it kind of flows with the right frequency and energy, and everything seems to be aligned on itself. That's why I think it's so important.
Yeah, I think that's it's so powerful. Gratitude is a game changer. Like I stay immersed in it probably all day long. Like it's one of those frequencies that just it feels good. It feels good to appreciate others. It feels good to appreciate. I mean, today as I'm driving into the studio, I was even like, every single cloud, thank you, clouds, thank you.
She's not kidding.
I'm not kidding.
Sometimes we have to stop walking so she can take a moment.
That's awesome. I call that abundant living, right? Because if you're already thankful for what you have or what you think you don't have, you already have it. If you're already thankful for it.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful space to be in because it really it grounds you in the present moment, because it makes you stop to observe the present moment and show appreciation in the present moment.
Yeah. And you can't be immersed in that specific emotion while also being immersed in all of the other negative emotions. And maybe especially people that have anxiety, who can't stop their racing thoughts, if you can get into that gratitude emotion, it kind of erases everything else for a second. And my son will say, and I don't know if I put this there. I want to think that I didn't, but I'm sure I probably did. He'll say that when we're thanking God, thanking the universe, he says he feels it in his tummy, he feels it in his arms, and it tickles. I'm like, it does, doesn't it?
He's 3 years old. He's amazing.
Way to put it.
I know. Children have the best way of describing their feelings and emotions.
Yeah, he's a funny kid.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a little break right now. And as soon as we get back, we are going to talk a little bit more and maybe ask a couple more questions. And this is going to be exciting.
Yay.
Awesome, guys.
Hi, friends. I have some really exciting news. I have just released the Mental Duality Guide to Life-Changing Results. And this simple guide has transformed so many people's lives, because what it helps to do is it helps to open up your awareness to the areas that you may be feeling unsupported, insecure, fearful, trauma that you may have had from the past that you just need to shed some light on and bring your awareness to. And the guide bridges the gap from a negative space over to a more neutral or a high vibrational frequency. So when we see that it's unsupported that we're feeling, we know dualistically that it is support. We need to feel supported in this life. Or if we're feeling insecure, we know that it's security we need to work on feeling, or maybe confidence that we need to work on feeling. And this guide allows you to open up how you actually feel. It allows you to kind of sift through some of the negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions that you might be experiencing, and have a way, a bridge to move them from a negative space into a positive space. I've had so many clients just see amazing results. And me, myself, I have gone to this guide in order to identify thought patterns that I was experiencing and analyze those thought patterns if they were positive or negative. Sometimes we get a thought just like seeps into our mind and we can't really put it into a category. But when we sit with a program like this, we understand what our underlying feelings might be, and bridging the gap from the negative over to something that's going to be more neutral or more positive is the secret to our personal growth and development. And this guide is going to guide you through that. Hopefully one day you join us for the Intuitive Ascending Mind program, but this guide is free for you to work on. It's personal to you. And what it'll do is that it'll open up your awareness. And once you go through that transition of opening up your awareness, you understand the areas that you need to work on. And it also will give you some wonderful affirmations to help build you foundationally from the ground up into a more positive, more happier, more healthier version of yourself, and more wealthier, of course. Peace and blessings, my friends.
Welcome back to the Success Frequency with Aliyah Yasmin. We hope you are finding these tools and tips applicable to your own situations in life. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we are chatting about emotions. I've got Roberto, Bugatto, and Ashley Johnson with me in the studio. And let's touch a little bit on nonverbal communication and how emotions govern our nonverbal communication that's observed from others. And how do we become more aware of this?
Good topic, because when it comes down to workplace success, about everything that we do in the workplace is communication, is always relationship, yeah. And some people say that maybe artificial intelligence will change that, but I don't believe that. Everything that we do, it's about personal relationship in one way or another. So our ability to really understand, read the room quickly, will turn the tides on how successful we are in bringing our message across. So not just reading other people's message, but understanding how people are reading the message that we are giving. And I love the model that Meravians, it's called the 738-55 communication model. So what Meravian says is that about 7% of the communication comes from spoken words. And we give so much emphasis to spoken words compared to everything else. But only the message that we're giving, only 7% comes from actually spoken words. Everything else comes on a 38% through voice and tone. And then the 55% is really body language. And if it's your own internal ability, like we mentioned before in the previous segment about self-mastery, if you're not able to really self-master yourself, that interior, that the whole voice, tone, body language, non-verbal communication will transmit, exactly how you're feeling in the moment that you're feeling it, whether you want to hide it behind spoken words or not.
Yeah, absolutely. How does like emotional intelligence really impact our overall experience, our overall demeanor, I guess, among others? Like, how does that really kind of impact it?
In so many levels. The main key one that I think for executives or in the workplace environment, even in relationships elsewhere, is your ability to elicit feedback. Because if you're giving a message, you have to find mechanisms to try to understand where your audience is, and your audience may be your child or your loved one or your coworker, your boss, or your subordinate at work. But it's always about trying to elicit feedback from them, because I'm trying to express a message. I'm trying to transmit something. Am I being successful? Am I not being successful? Are they getting the message that I want them to get, or are they getting the message that they're in the mood to get? And if I'm able to read the mood, and this is where developing emotional intelligence becomes so powerful, is that if you're able to read the room, first one, then you can become quickly the calibrator of that room. I love it, the concept of emotional contagion, and there's a whole study about this, but emotional contagion happens both consciously and subconsciously, and people tend to mimic when they feel very comfortable in the neurolinguistic programming world. This is one of the techniques that the coaches are use to really gain rapport with the coachee or an audience in general. If you're able to bring people into your frequency, or you jump into their frequency before you bring them into your own, then you become a very successful negotiator, communicator, etc. It's a very powerful tool, and emotional intelligence, again, like we said, is both awareness of yourself and then awareness of the external world.
Yeah, that's very true. Because the external world, we really, the moment we look at somebody, we're trying to almost judge them instantaneously. We're determining within the first few seconds, do we like or do we dislike, like instantly. And then their energetic field is also what we're basing that information off of, like, the energy that we feel off of that person. So I think that's really insightful. And I love how you said about intentions, because I think it's very beneficial for executives to set intentions before acting on something. So I think when we set the intentions, like, then we set the vibe, basically. And I think
Indeed.
that's the key to having great communication with your staff, with everyone around you, because once you set the intentions and you set the vibrational frequency, that you setting the message, you're setting all of these parameters before it's really intentional living, escalated to, your work environment or your family environment as well. Because if you set the intentions that I'm going to, maybe somebody did something within the family that is not nice, you set the intentions, I'm going to treat this situation with love. And as you go into the conversation, it is love focused. So they can't get offended when it's love focused, because you're treating it with love. That was your intention going into that.
And it's also, Alia, about staying true to that intention.
Yeah.
I love the way you put it, but one of the concepts that I explore in the Nuclear Leader is what I call emotional dissociation.
Hmm.
And this happens so many. I've seen it happen so many times in personal and then workplace, personal life and workplace. That if you don't stay true to your intention and your values, when you're trying to communicate, even if people are nodding their heads and saying yes to everything you say because you're the boss, you've dissociated them, and hence you're not able to extract the maximum potential or performance out of people. And the problem is that we do it quite often. And I think developing honesty as a key value for yourself, always stay true to those intentions that you initially set, will bring you way much forward, much faster than
Yeah.
try to navigate through a conventional conflict management.
I
One of the
definitely.
things, yeah,
Oh,
go ahead.
no, I'm so sorry. You literally just brought up conflict management. I was just going to ask you about that. How
Hmm.
intention, you have to keep that intention. Sorry, go on.
No, no, it's precisely what I was trying to, because at the end of the day, Um, Conflict only happens when there is separation. So if we're always on the same value level, if we're always rowing the boat on the same direction, there shouldn't be any conflict. There might be kind of roughing or different opinions, but there is no real conflict because there is no a separation of intentions or intent. So it's really when the dissociation happens that conflict comes, when someone is pulling into a different direction. And it also happens internally as well, actually. I mean, it happens in our own lives, in our own brains, when you're pulling either the past or the future or you're trying to be something that you're not, it creates an internal conflict. Same in the organization.
Right. And you have to have that discipline, learn discipline with yourself to have the intention. I know that you have a very, very busy life. And someone asked you, how do you keep that, you're just getting better in life and yet you have more to handle and you have quite a home life as well. And you talked about do you want to
How do you maintain your emotions, basically?
well, they said, how do you excel? And he actually said, with love. He had to think about it a lot, I think. And his ultimate was, it's not just discipline, it's actually love. Do you want to expand on that for people that are struggling with other things in life and they just feel overwhelmed? And
because love is such a natural emotion for us human beings to have that we tend to forget it quite often, to be honest. But the way that I've become, and I often say this in my conversations with friends and colleagues, etc., is that it really was my severely autistic child that really turned me into a high performer, because I was so naturally drawn by love to him in the sense that it was, I couldn't question whether I had to help him or if my relationship had any value. Or I didn't question it at any point. But sometimes in our lives, we tend to question whether love is the answer or not. And I mean, if people want to try it, then by all means, we keep on trying something else other than kindness and love, and look where it's getting the society in general. But my invitation is just always try love, because you can never put out fire with more fire, and conflict can only be resolved with love, especially internal conflict. One of the best advice that I received and that I keep on giving is always be gentle to yourself. One of the exercises that I use with my mentees is, whenever you're feeling that you're judging yourself harshly, try to say that same thing that you're telling yourself to your best friend or your loved one, and see how that changes. I see how much harder it is to tell that to your best friend. But when it comes to yourself, it's quite easy to beat yourself down. So for me, gentleness, love, and kindness are very, very powerful high emotions.
Yeah, I agree. Like it really understanding how to really be immersed in love. Love is not, I think there's such a shallow perspective on what people think love is, because a lot of people associate love with what they can benefit. And that's not what real love is. Real love is self-appreciation, self-love, choosing the right thoughts to think, because that's really like your purest state of love. How you're going to choose to handle a situation, that's a lot of self-love that you're doing preemptively. So as you're setting intentions that you're going to go into this environment and you're going to be kind and compassionate, respectful, you're really setting the stage for love, on different levels.
Unconditional. And it is hard.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. It's really hard, especially for executives, actually, because people think, how can I express love in the workplace? It's a lot more relatable outside the workplace. But how can you express love and utilize love in the workplace? And the thought that I always try, leave with people is, when you love someone, what are you capable of doing with that person? And generally, when people will say, anything, for my child, for my father, my mother, my loved one, I'm able to do whatever I need to do to support them, to push them forward, to raise them, to whatever I have to do for them, I will do it. And you don't think about the consequences or the cost that it comes to you. So if we could actually utilize that concept into the workplace and really have our employees, our teams work for us out of love, how much more powerful or efficient our teams will be. And I'm not
Definitely, the
saying it should
numbers
be.
show appreciation. Appreciation and love and support has exponential value in your sales and your output, your production.
Yeah.
So, and you'll always remember those companies you worked for that where you felt appreciated and supported, and you grow so much.
Absolutely. I think we all have like those stories of like, that manager, that boss that really kind of took us under their wing and helped to guide us instead of ridiculing us or telling us we were doing, a bad job or not good job. Um,
I,
so
mm,
I want to share, we're running down to our last minute here. So Roberto, will you share with others how to reach you, how to contact you?
yeah, of course. You can find me on LinkedIn, R Bugatto. You can find me also on my website, rbugatto.com. That's with a double T. On Instagram, Facebook, also by via email at info@rbugatto.com. Yeah, I will be launching also my podcast very soon called Emoji Chat. So I'll be looking forward to have you on board there.
That's great. That's great. I look forward to that opportunity. I thank you so much for being on the show today. You can find us at sublimeknowledge.com. Email us your questions at info@sublimeknowledge.com. And I want to thank everybody for listening. Thank you, Roberto, for being there. And thank you, Ash, for joining us today.